Hasha title, The Fall of the Iron Regime, a Fictional Coup in Germany. Chapter 1. The land, the cities, and the order of ranks. Germany in this tale is a living map of contrasts. A nervous capital, proud ceremonial towns, solemn command centers, and patient fields that feed the nation. Stanfox lies far from the flagstones of power. A countryside city ringed by pine and wide drill grounds. Low stone barracks smell of liniment and machine oil, telegraph lines hum, officers move with brisk, hushed purpose. This is where strategy is drafted, and where iron nerves are grown. Liechtenstein is the nation's beating agricultural heart. Patchwork fields, mud lanes, windmills, and wooden carts. Technology is minimal. The villages are candlelit at night, and children learn to mend plows as their fathers do. It provides the food and most tax revenues, but its people are distant from the marble capitals. Schönbrunn is the nation's outward face, manicured streets, museums, and the chancellor's residence. Ships and troop trains depart from here for foreign theaters. Berlin, the capital, is the nerve center. Parliament and ministries, the Führer's palaces, and the tight mesh of administrative control. Power flows in a strict ladder. At the apex stands Führerreich Hitler, followed by Reichsführer des Göring, Chancellor Homanes, and Amtsführer Stokowitz, who commands all armed arms. Below them sit SS Field Marshal Himmler, Field Marshal Platoon, Field Marshal Manstein, and the generals, General Zimhof, General Jakaisi, General Mountakov. The lieutenants, Lieutenant General Hindenburg, Lieutenant General Rommel, Lieutenant General Samov, lead corps and inspire troops. Lower still are Major General Klokombix and Colonel Stewart, officers who carry orders into streets. Symbols matter here. A single national medal Germany, NMG, is a golden star of legend, given only for deeds that everyone retells. Chapter 2. The awakening at Stanfox. Dawn in Stanfox comes slowly, with mist tangled among the pines. General Mountakov woke before light, rubbing sleep from a face hardened by campaigns. He stood before a stretched map, inked rail lines, borders from Spain to Ukraine, and felt no triumph. The Empire's breadth only highlighted its rot. He had been decorated, the sheen of medals across his chest, the rare NMG glinting as proof men trusted him with life. Yet medals alone did not cure what he had seen in Liechtenstein. Children thin at the edges of granaries and villages where harvests left the fields empty of grain at the household level. In the small hours he dressed, the uniform creaking, felt the weight of brass and leather, and climbed into a diesel car with the smell of coolant and old paper maps. The air in his bones told him the old forms could not fix it. He decided the only remedy would be decisive. A coup, surgical and by officers, not mobs. He drove toward the army headquarters in Stanfox with a plan forming like a steel spring. Seek allies among those who still loved the uniform more than the regime. Chapter 3. The Secret Law and the Circle of Conspiracy. At the headquarters, he summoned 3 trusted lieutenants by name and rank. Lieutenant General Hindenburg, Lieutenant General Rommel, Lieutenant General Samov. In a dim planning room, maps pinned and tea long cold, General Mountakov laid out a cold legal gambit, the statute they would call death to Führer. The law's cruelty was precise. If publicly invoked upon the Führer's death, it would strip most of the regime of legal authority while preserving the absolute powers of the 5 highest officers, the small circle of Göring, Homanes, Stokowitz, Himmler, platoon. The conspirators understood the iron key. Amtsführer Stokowitz had to lend his signature to make the law plausible and legal. Without him, the page was paper and rumor. So Mountakov's plan split into 2 tasks. First, obtain Stokowitz's signature under a pretext, then deliver the public story of Hitler's death. Quiet nods sealed the agreement. No one laughed. The room felt like a ship's hull before launch. All tension, no sound. Chapter 4. Deception in Berlin. The 2 field marshals, Lieutenant General Hindenburg, traveled to Berlin with an envelope of careful words and a burning lethargy in his chest. He found Field Marshal Platoon and Field Marshal Manstein within the army's marble halls and told them plainly, the nation's structure must be salvaged by the soldier's hand. They weighed risk like 2 old gamblers and chose a theater of deception. The 2 marshals arranged a visit to Amtsführer Stokowitz, who ruled all the armed branches. In Stokowitz's inner room, a space of dark wood and heavy drapery, Field Marshal Manstein spoke of foreign maneuvers and budgetary urgency, spinning a story of military funds and urgent appropriations. While Stokoviz leaned forward, interested and distracted, Field Marshal Platoon slid the legal page into a stack of fund documents and guided Stokoviz's hand to the signature line. The ink dried unnoticed. The two exchanged a private grin as they left. The law had a signature. The first hinge turned. Chapter 5. Mustering Liechtenstein and the Chancellor's Ledger. While the top officers performed their quiet theater, Lieutenant General Samov rode back into Liechtenstein. He spoke to major generals amid village smoke and the smell of bread, proposing a military program that would, on the surface, furnish training and roads. In truth, the program would muster 50,000 lieutenants, organized under 15 brigadiers, a centrally controlled army that could move like a single, obedient muscle. Men came, some for money, some for hunger, many for the promise of purpose. At the same time, Lieutenant General Rommel traveled to Schobron and, in the Chancellor's private study, found a ledger that burned like acid to anyone who loved the state. Chancellor Homanes had siphoned vast sums, 15 billion in the story's currency, into shadow accounts. Rommel left with evidence and a plan. Money breeds leverage. Chapter 6. Defno-Führer, the law that stalled the coup. Plans stalled beneath the weight of reality. The Führer's person was wrapped by layers of security and myth. Any staged death seemed impossible to make convincing. Greater still, a law, Defno-Führer, blocked their path. It declared that no officer could validate the Führer's death without direct personal sight, except the Chancellor Homanes, who alone could declare death without seeing the body. The law had originally been drafted as a safeguard against chaos. Now it protected the man they targeted. Mountokov felt the teeth of the legal machine close around them. They could neither kill nor fake the Führer convincingly, while the Chancellor refused to cooperate. Hope thinned. Conspirators set the plan aside for a time, watching the bureaucratic gears and searching for a new lever. Chapter 7. The court, the scandal, and the forced signature. Tension snapped when Lieutenant General Rommel returned with paper proof of the Chancellor's theft. The evidence spread through the command like lightning. In a charged, ironed room, the conspirators discussed a final gambit. Public court action could disgrace and remove Chancellor Homanes, but it required a procedural signature from the Führer to be immediate. A signature impossible to obtain because of Defno-Führer's constraints. The solution was raw and legal. Force, not necessarily murder, but coercion backed by law and evidence. Armored cars took the senior officers to Schobron. Facing exposure, disgrace, and a tribunal, Chancellor Homanes collapsed and, between tears and trembling, signed the declaration that under Defno-Führer declared the Führer dead. The movement they feared turned into a legal instrument. The conspirators had bought legality with disgrace. Chapter 8. March on Berlin and the first arrests. With signatures and statutes in hand, the world turned. Formal power in ministries and offices flicked out. Decrees were null by paper. Yet the law's retention clause left the 5 highest officers still fully empowered, meaning Field Marshal Platoon still commanded a great measure of force. He ordered the 50,000 troops from Liechtenstein to march at once on Berlin to arrest SS leaders and secure the capital. Streets changed. Banners were taken down and replaced by army sentries. Crowds watched in silence and fear. The Führer, branded dead by document yet present in life, raged from his palace. He ordered Field Marshal Platoon sacked, but legally he had no instrument to enforce it. The capital became a chessboard of arrests, detentions, and frantic radio messages as the army moved in with discipline to arrest hardline officers and regain the institutions. Chapter 9. The battle for the capital and the fall of the inner circle. The Führer answered the army's sweep with the last lever he had, the SS. He commanded SS Field Marshal Himmler to release 80,000 SS and crush the hostile army. Berlin erupted into the fiercest urban fighting the country had seen in years. Columns of men, smoke, and the acrid smell of burning cordite. Lieutenant General Rommel commanded the army's flank with method. His forces, drilled and disciplined, faced waves of SS fanaticism. In a ruthless hour, Colonel Stewart, acting on General Mountokov's orders, shot Chancellor Homanes, removing the last legal smokescreen protecting the old machine. In another sector, General Jakaisi and General Zimhuv set Parliament alight by order of Field Marshal Platoon, denying the regime the hearth of law. Under coordinated pressure, the SS ranks faltered. SS Field Marshal Himmler was captured. Lieutenant General Rommel pushed into the Führer's palace, climbed stone steps, and descended into the bunker where, in a scene of exhausted men and quiet fury, he arrested Führer Reich Hitler, Reichsführer des Göring, and Amritführer Stokoviz. Chapter 10, Aftermath, New Order, and Reckonings. The fighting ceased not in jubilation but in the grainy relief of survival. A new party, All Democratic Liberal Germans Party, ADLGP, rose from the officers and civilians who wished to end the old cruelties. Field Marshal Platoon assumed the title of Amretführer, stabilizing the armed forces under the new order. General Mountakov was promoted to Field Marshal and awarded a Gilded National Medal Germany. Lieutenant General Rommel likewise rose to Field Marshal with honors for taking Berlin. Trials followed. SS Field Marshal Himmler faced judgment and, by the sentence of the new tribunal, was executed for his crimes. Amretführer. Stokoviz was removed and imprisoned for years for corruption. Reichsführer des Göring was reduced to an ordinary military rank, his political aura stripped. The nation, scarred, began the slow work of rebuilding institutions and mending harvests in Lake Testine. People returned to fields, factories, and markets, the heavy shape of war receding. Victory tasted uncertainly sweet. The old cruelty had ended, but the long work of restoration had only begun.